On today's show, it's a game day preview. Here's how the Ottawa Senators can avoid a season series sweep at the hands of the Montreal Canadiens.
And we have a very special guest. We welcome on Toronto Blue Jays studio analyst and diehard Sens fan, Jamie Campbell.
This is Brady Kachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just head to FanDuel to get started. Today is Friday, April 11th, and Pilsy, oh my goodness. For those just listening, you're welcome because it's a tough look on video.
Yeah, we have our babyface playoff beards going here. Day one, razors away, as David Perron let everyone know the Sens players put their razors away. So we changed our platform. Our platform was after game 82. We were shaving, but we want to be in stride with the team here. And Ross, we already did the buzz cut bet back in March. Now we've shaved our faces for the playoffs. Like, if this team wins the cup, what, we're gonna have to do bikini waxes, or what? Like, our hair is just property of the Ottawa Senators, apparently.
Yeah, eyebrows gone. Well, I'll be shaving my eyebrows off if the Sens lose the Montreal Canadiens tonight. I can't handle a season series sweep. I'd like it on record.
Someone clip that.
That is a joke. That is a joke. But what is also a joke is the fact Ottawa hasn't beaten Montreal this year. After 9 straight wins in previous seasons, the Sens are 0-3-0 and blew a third period lead, not once, but twice against the Habs in Montreal last month. The Habs have been super streaky since then. They lost their next 5 games after that win. They got 2 loser points in there, but 5 straight losses. And now they're coming off 6 straight wins. And Pilsy, this is either a great or a horrible storyline. If the Habs win tonight, they clinch a playoff spot. Ottawa can stop that from happening with a victory.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird. The Montreal Canadiens gave us our clinch when the Ottawa Senators lost to Columbus, and they won their game up against Detroit. But, you know, I'm not feeling too friendly. I don't necessarily want to return the favor here. So I wouldn't mind getting the win, stopping the series sweep, making them wait a little while longer. Because not only that, but like you mentioned, like, as I tried to tell you weeks ago, Ross, this game is going to have massive implications on the Ottawa Senators season, because this will put the Montreal Canadiens 1 point back of the Sens if they win in regulation. So you got to stop that from happening, because I know we said it, once they clinch, doesn't matter who cares where you finish, but I think it does matter a little bit if you finish above or below the Montreal Canadiens, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly that. And with 81 points, the Columbus Blue Jackets and the New York Rangers only have 3 games left in the season, right? So even they're in a situation where they would have to win out, the Habs would have to lose out, and they would have to continue holding on, which they do right now, the tiebreaker. So it's really just Columbus that's on the Habs. I don't even want to call it the tail. They're about 5 feet back, chasing them here with 4 games left, but not to clinch against us. And how interesting could things get? Because if Montreal loses tonight, their next game is against Toronto. So if Ottawa and Toronto can stop the Montreal Canadiens and maybe Columbus wins a few, at least we could have an interesting last couple of games of the season. I wouldn't have said that before, but Pilsy, how nice is it not to worry about the scoreboard out of town anymore? Like last night, I didn't even look at the scores until all the games were over. I couldn't care less about what Columbus, the Rangers, and all those teams below Ottawa is doing.
Yeah, it's so nice, Ross. Especially, I feel like you really were diving into the out-of-town scoreboards. You were updating the group chat period by period on out-of-town scoreboard games. Like, so this must be a nice break for you here.
Yeah, I was scoreboard watching in like late December. I was like, oh, Boston's playing a Western team. Now Boston's like dead last in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I mean, also it's crazy. Like, it's meaningless and kind of goes against what they probably want now, but Buffalo has been insanely hot. So I guess it makes you feel a little bit better, Ross, at the end of the season. Buffalo not at the bottom of the Atlantic. You're like, hey, this team that was on the cusp of making a playoff push swept us. But I don't want to hear any more season series sweeps. So let's stop that tonight and beat the Habs.
Yeah, can't get swept by both the Habs and the Sabres in the same season. So let's stop that from happening. We'll get to lineup notes. We'll get to players to watch. Great interview with Jamie Campbell coming up. Really, really cool. I didn't know what to expect. Obviously, he's a great speaker, longtime sportscaster. We get into a little bit of his career and how ultimately it made him a lifelong Ottawa Senators fan. You see him on Blue Jays coverage every single night. Shout out to the everydayers who are riding with us throughout this entire run and who have been with us for 1,600 plus episodes if you include postcasts. And Pilsy, we are finally covering a team going to the playoffs, but let's not get over our skis here. We got a big game to cover tonight with the Ottawa Senators taking on the Habs. The Senators had a very optional morning skate today, and Travis Green did not speak to the media, so no updates. But based on Anton Forsberg being out there tonight, we'll expect Linus Ullmark to get the start, and Ullmark has played in all 3 losses so far this season to Montreal. It is a very, very tough record for him, and it's a tough save percentage as well. He's got an .819 save percentage in those 3 games against Montreal, so I would love nothing more than to see a bounce-back performance from him as he looks to continue staying hot. I mean, a shutout in his last game ain't bad.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no reason why, Ross, he can't turn this narrative of playing poorly against the Habs around. Now, obviously, Brady Tkachuk probably not going to play, but maybe a different player returning to the lineup we'll get into.
Yeah, it'd be great if Nick Cousins is there. I did not put him into our lineup graphic today, but we will get to what we think could be the projected lineups for Ottawa against Montreal tonight. Tim Stützle centering the top line with Fabian Zetterlund, 1 goal in his last 1 game, and Claude Giroux. You got Dylan Cousins between David Perron and Drake Batherson. Shane Pinto centering Ridley Gregg and Michael Amadio. And then Adam Gaudette with Angus Crookshank and Matthew Highmore. On defense, Jake Sanderson with Artem Zub. Thomas Chabot with Nick Jensen. Tyler Clevin with Nicholas Matin-Paolo. We just mentioned Linus Ullmark expected to start in goal. I'm keeping these lines, Pilsy, because I truly believe yesterday was just an experiment where they moved Tim Stützle in between David Perron and Drake Batherson, flipping Cousins and Tim Stützle down the middle. But I think they're going to go back to this. That's just my personal thought. We'll have to wait and see for warm-ups until we get some line combinations. Pilsy, who's your locked-on player to watch tonight?
My locked-on player to watch tonight is going to be, let's go Jake Sanderson, my X-Factor player for the playoffs. Obviously, these 2 fan bases, Ottawa and Montreal, they both feel like they have the best up-and-coming young defenseman. Sens fans with Sanderson, Habs fans with Hudson. So it's going to be interesting to see if those 2 are on the ice at the same time. I'm going to be locked on to number 85 here.
Love that. 7 points in 10 career games for Jake Sanderson against the Montreal Canadiens. And if you go back to the start of the 4 Nations break, Jake Sanderson among the most points by any defenseman in the National Hockey League. He has just been on quite the run, scoring clutch goals. I feel like he's had way more goals than I would have expected for him to have. And I think it's since March 1st that he is among the top. He is 5th in the last 20 games in points by defenseman, tied for Dahlin for 4th. And there's Lane Hudson, 2 points up on him and with 1 less game. Now, Sanderson does have 5 goals to Lane Hudson's 2, but you can't take away what Lane Hudson brings to the table. Offensively, he is completely ridiculous. You got to be able to know where he is at all times. And the Senators got a front row seat to one of his highlight reel goals in their last game against Montreal, that 3rd period. It was almost the classic Tim Stützle goal where he comes down the left wing as a left shot and then just rips one short side upstairs. But I like that call there for Jake Sanderson. If Ottawa is going to win tonight, they need Tim Stützle to get back into the scoring column. Tim Stützle is doing a lot of great things away from the puck, but goal scoring just has not been coming naturally for him over the last number of games. Since the trade deadline, Stützle has 1 goal in 17 games. 1 goal. That's got to be picked up. 8 points over that stretch. He's a plus player, sure. He only has 21 shots on goal in those 17 games. We said we wanted 3 shots on goal minimum down the stretch per game, so that's going to be my barometer for success tonight. Will Timmy get 3 shots on goal? Be better if he puts one in the back of the net, but he loves playing against the Montreal Canadiens. He'll tell you that as well. In Stützle's career against the Habs, he's got 20 points in 22 games. I will be locked on to Timmy Superstar tonight, hoping that he comes through offensively. He's been playing great away from the puck, but in the playoffs, you're going to need your top guys to give you some offense, and 1 goal in 17 games ain't going to cut it.
Yeah, and we know he gets up for these games up against the Montreal Canadiens, Ross, and especially with no Brady Tkachuk here, I think Timmy's going to take it upon himself to try to push the offense even more.
So Tim Stützle, Jake Sanderson, the 2020 vision for us in this Locked On player to watch. We'll get to the Habs and more lineup notes after a quick break. Then we'll get to our great interview with Jamie Campbell. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes it easy, whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into some player props. From 3-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same game parlay for a chance to win big. And if you're looking at betting on the Ottawa Senators game tonight, the Sens are a minus 142 favorite. The over-under is set at 5.5 at minus 124. So get all your action in on FanDuel. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Club EG, the premium club in Ottawa when you're looking to get out on the golf course this summer. I don't care if you're an awful golfer like me or if you're trying to hit par with every round you take. Locked On Senators knows that Club EG is the place to go for tournaments, clubs. They've even got trips that you can take with your Club EG membership. You can purchase a membership and play over 60 great courses in Ottawa. I saw Loch Marsh has been added to the clubs that Club EG partners with. You can join a golf league, you can go on the golf trips, and even play in the Ottawa Sun Scramble, which is a 2-person scramble championship. It's completely up to you which path you take with Club EG. Check out clubeg.golf for more information and to learn more about so many great options to get you playing more golf this summer. With over 60 great courses through Club EG, so many options to choose from. Just play more golf. You don't need a membership to take part in any of their events, leagues, or trips, but if you want to become a member to play the great courses day in and day out, there's always a great early bird special on at clubeg.golf. I know with the weather recently, it doesn't feel like golf weather, but it's coming soon. Masters are on, and get your clubs ready at clubeg.golf. That's clubeg.golf, and let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. All right, Pillsy, it is a 7 o'clock puck drop tonight from the Canadian Tire Center. 3 games left after tonight in the regular season, all of which will be played at home. The Senators have a matinee on Sunday against the Philadelphia Flyers. They'll wrap up the season with games Tuesday against Chicago and Thursday against the Carolina Hurricanes. Ottawa has clinched a playoff spot. We expect game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs to be either Sunday, April 20th, or Monday, April 21st. We'll just have to wait and see the schedule and who the opponent will be. But the goal tonight is to stop the Habs from clinching a playoff spot of their own. The Habs come in 3 points behind Ottawa, but they do have 6 straight wins. How are they doing this? Offensive production galore, especially from their captain. Here's how we expect the Habs to line up in tonight's game. Nick Suzuki between Cole Caulfield and Juraj Slafkovsky. The second line, Alex Newhook between Oliver Kapanen and Patrick Laine. Third line, we'll see Christian Dvorak with Josh Anderson and Brendan Gallagher. And the fourth line is Jake Evans with Michael Pezzetta and Joel Armia. On defense, Mike Matheson with Alexandre Carrier, Caden Gooley with Lane Hudson, and Jaden Struble with David Savard. Samuel Montembeault is expected to start in goal. Jakob Dobesh is the other. I have a feeling they're going to somehow sneak Arbor Jacki, who's been a healthy scratch, into the lineup just for the buffoonery that comes with Ottawa and Montreal games. But who is your lookout player to watch on the Habs?
Well, I'll stick to the same theme. I'll go with number 48, Lane Hudson. Look, you can't deny the talent this kid has. Is he more of an offenseman than a defenseman? Absolutely. But when you're putting up massive points, like 64 points in 78 games in your rookie season, you got to give him a lot of credit there. So he's someone, Ross, every time he has the puck, I'm just like, oh man, like, please find a way to get that off his stick because he could pull off some pretty incredible moves. So I'll be looking out for number 48, Lane Hudson.
And we knew that in the draft process, Pilsy. We were both like, look, this guy's a first-round pick. The only thing I'm going to say about it is thank goodness Lane Hudson went 62nd and Ottawa drafted 64th. Because if it was flipped and Ottawa took Nordberg 2 spots ahead instead of behind Lane Hudson, it would almost be as bad as taking Jesperi Kotkaniemi 1 spot ahead of Brady Tkachuk.
Yeah, but even, let's be honest, the Sens wouldn't have drafted him anyways. They had a chance to draft his brother, and they went in a different direction.
They went in a taller direction.
Yes.
This season, though, we could see the first Hab reach 90 points since Vinny Domfus in 1996. That's how long it's been, and we've had a lot of fun with that. Tim Stützle, at 21 years old, has more points than any Hab in a single season since 1996. But that could be coming to an end because Nick Suzuki is on some type of run. 34 points, is tied for second in the National Hockey League since the Four Nations break. He's also got 4 game-winning goals over that stand. He is really playing some incredible hockey. Ottawa has to look out for him when he's on the ice. He's up to 86 points in 78 games this season, 9 game-winning goals, including 5 in overtime. So if it gets to 3-on-3 overtime tonight, you're going to have to know where Nick Suzuki is at all times. Funny enough, he went 2 picks before Eric Brandstrom. Vegas shipped off both of those picks. Montreal sent Max Pacioretty to Vegas for Nick Suzuki. And Ottawa traded Mark Stone for Eric Brandstrom. But that to say, you got to watch out for Nick Suzuki. It's truly incredible the way that he's been able to elevate his game so much. And he's really becoming an elite 2-way offensive centerman that's putting up points and a plus 19 as well. He's also not going to get into said buffoonery. He's got 6 penalty minutes all year.
Yeah, definitely not. That's the thing. Like, as much as we dislike the Habs, they do have some pretty talented young players, and I'm just glad, Ross, we're not going to see Demidov in tonight's game because I don't need to see that just yet.
I don't know if we're going to see any Habs fans at the CTC too. They might all be at Toronto Pearson Airport trying to find Demidov's lost luggage. That was a wild scene. Tony Marinaro's a longtime Habs journalist was live streaming from Toronto's airport. It was apparently Habs Fan TV said that the flight that Demidov was on from Istanbul, Turkey to Toronto was the 5th most tracked flight in the world yesterday.
That's nuts. I mean, hey, it's an exciting time for them. He's going to be a very, very interesting prospect for sure.
Yeah, he is. And he might make his debut on Monday in Toronto, as they're probably like, look, you're probably super jet lagged. No worries coming to Ottawa. I don't know if he's coming to Ottawa, but if I was in charge, I would say just stay in Toronto. We'll see you there. Let's let you get some rest and relaxation, because the atmosphere when he makes his debut in Montreal, or if it's in Toronto on Monday, is going to be outrageous. Hopefully he can handle the media attention, because that's something like I haven't seen before. So in one side, I'm like, hey, credit to Habs fans, super passionate. They're obviously like begging for a superstar type player. But number 2, this is a 19-year-old kid. Like, maybe like give him a little space. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah. I don't know how to feel about it. It's crazy though. Regardless of how you feel about it, this is wild to see that kind of reaction.
And it's wild to see what the Ottawa Senators and Montreal Canadiens have done since November 25th. At that moment, Ottawa was second last in the Eastern Conference, and Montreal was dead last in the Eastern Conference. Since then, Ottawa has the 4th best points percentage in the East, and Montreal has the 5th best points percentage in the East. If you go by overall standings, it goes 10th overall since November 25th. That's 3/4 of the season. Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, and 12 in the National Hockey League over that stand. So, look, it's going to make the playoffs a whole hell of a lot more interesting with all 3 of those teams in the mix. And then you look out west, obviously Edmonton's got McDavid. They always have a chance. Stanley Cup finalists. The Winnipeg Jets are about to win the President's Trophy for the best team. They just shut out the Dallas Stars last night. Connor Hellebuyck was unreal in that game. Like, poor Calgary, poor Vancouver. But other than that, it is going to be a very Canadian first round of the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and it's exciting. I mean, that's what this country wants right now. You want to see Canadian teams in the playoffs, and I'm just glad we're one of them this time, Ross.
We certainly are. And we've got fans all over Canada, including in the heart of enemy territory. We're about to send it to our interview with Jamie Campbell. You watch him every single night. If you're a Blue Jays fan, he's on Sportsnet doing the panel, whether it's at home games in the Rogers Center or on the road in the studio. He also has a connection to Ottawa that I think you guys will enjoy. So on the other side, we'll get to our interview with Jamie Campbell. We'll see you in the postcast tonight as well. After the game, Pilsy and I will be manning the postcast presented by the GLEBE Central Pub. We cannot wait to vibe. Whether or not it's going to be a vibecast. I mean, the Sens are in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but let's get 2 points beside our name in the standings and really put pressure on the Atlantic Division winners, maybe those Toronto Maple Leafs. More on the other side. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Look, there's nothing like the energy of a live game. Whether it's catching a last-minute MLB showdown, soaking the excitement of an NBA matchup, or being at the rink for an NHL game. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge. Until I found Game Time. Game Time makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. The prices actually drop as the event gets closer, and with their all-in pricing, you can see that total cost up front, no surprise fees at checkout. Check out the last-minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last-minute for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. You can grab last-minute seats for your favorite sporting events and save big with their zone deals, and with seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee, you can book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
All right, we now welcome a very, very special guest. I'll go out and say it. He is one of the best sportscasters in Canadian history. He's called Olympics. You heard him with the Blue Jays back in the day, and now he's the studio analyst for Jays Central on Sportsnet. Jamie Campbell, welcome to Locked On Senators. How are you doing today?
Hey, Ross, Brandon, I'm embarrassed by the accolades, so we can keep those to a minimum as we go, but I'm thrilled to be here with you guys. I don't recall ever doing a hockey-based podcast of any kind. I'm never invited on these things, so because I'm a rabid fan of the Senators, I'm thrilled to be joining you two.
Absolutely. We do every week a Sens Central Citizen where we ask people how they became Ottawa Senators fans, and this is going to be a quasi that, but I can't let you come in here and not touch on your career at all. And there's one moment I want you to bring us back to because it was such a special moment in Canadian history. You got to call the first gold medal on Canadian soil in the Vancouver Olympics. Take us back, how that all came to be and what you remember from 2010 in Vancouver.
You know, I got that opportunity accidentally because originally when they formed the broadcast team for 2010, Holly Horton, who was at TSN at the time, was supposed to be calling those events. And about 2 or 3 months prior to the games, I believe she may have gotten pregnant or something and had to back away. And at the last minute, they asked me to handle them. So it was by sheer chance that I happened to be there for that occasion. And the great thing was Alex Bilodeau, that season on the World Cup circuit hadn't actually won an event yet. The circuit at that time was being dominated by a Canadian-born Australian named Dale Begg Smith. And so what Alex did that night up at Cypress Mountain was shocking to all of us, quite frankly. And I just happened to be in the right seat at the right time to describe it.
It's awesome.
So how did you get your start in the sports broadcasting industry, Jamie?
That's a great question. We'd need about an hour. I don't know if I just, applied to a course in university to kickstart it. I think it was created years earlier. In fact, I could probably go back to May of 1977 when I actually got to see my first major league game and was the first person in the stadium on the day that my father took me to the game, ran down the steps to where the then Minnesota Twins were taking batting practice. And one of their star players, a guy by the name of Lyman Bostock, saw me standing there by myself and got up out of his chair, came over and had this great conversation with me. And I was completely frozen by this moment because I had his baseball card at home. I knew exactly who he was, and I could not believe that he would care so much about a 9-year-old boy. And he made such an impression on me at that time. I think that was probably the first time I actually believed at age 9 that there was a chance that I could make some kind of living in this industry, meaning sports in general. And I probably believed I'd do it as an athlete at that time, but quite frankly, I wasn't very good at hockey or baseball. So that came and went very quickly. And I think at that moment is when I sort of hatched this idea that I should probably try and find a way of spending a lifetime in sports, and broadcasting was a great vehicle for that.
And is it true your first job within the industry? I mean, now it's Sportsnet, but then it would have been CBC Hockey Night in Canada. You were a runner for Don Cherry and Rod McLean?
I was indeed. I was a high school student in Oakville. I walked into the offices of Hockey Night in Canada and asked them for an internship, and they were very gracious, but they made it very clear they don't hire high schoolers. And they said, if you enroll in a broadcast-based course somewhere, which I eventually did, and come back to us, we'll bring you aboard. So the next year I went back wearing exactly the same suit. And in my first year at what's now called TMU, was then called Ryerson, I was hired as a runner for Hockey Night in Canada. It was an amazing time.
Was that John Shannon that would have been there at the time too?
I don't think John was there. The gentleman that oversaw Hockey Night at the time was a gentleman named Ron Harrison. We were still wearing the blue jackets. I actually have mine still. It doesn't fit.
No way.
But I've got it down in the basement in a suit bag somewhere. And those were some incredible times. How old would have been there? I think I was 19. So, as a 19-year-old to be told, okay, the game is almost over. You need to go down to the Zamboni entrance where the Oilers are coming off the ice, and you need to stop the 3 stars so that they can be sent out to skate out to center ice. So we need you to stop Gretzky, Messier, and Fuhrer, for example, right? And that's a pretty heady assignment for a 19-year-old kid, but I was able to pull it off most nights.
When you're doing that, did you ever have moments where you got to have genuine interactions with them, or it's more you pulling them off and then just having them there? Like, do you have a specific story or memory when you're doing that with the star player back in the day?
No, I don't. I took it pretty seriously. In fact, that one time when the Oilers were actually in town, and I don't remember the final score. It was 8-3 for Edmonton. Gretzky probably had 3 or 4 points. I took it so seriously that when Bob Cole was getting ready to introduce the 3 stars, which was then voiced by the public address announcer, Paul Morris, the cameras ended up shooting the area where I was standing with these 3 players. And I've seen the video of it, and I'm taking the job very seriously. Like, Gretzky, you wait here because you're number 2. Messier, you're going first. And I've got my hands on their back. And I took it pretty darn seriously. I had a job to do. And maybe I should have been a little more at ease with it, but remember, I was still just a teenager, so it's pretty imposing when you're standing with some of the people you've idolized over time.
And that would have been the early 90s, right? So the Ottawa Senators were just kind of a thought at that point. But then your career brought you to Ottawa. Is that where you started kind of getting interested in the Ottawa Senators?
Yes, I had been working as a weekend sportscaster out in Edmonton for CBC, and I always knew I wanted to find my way back to Ontario at some point. And a number of things fell into place. For one, James Duthie left CJOH in Ottawa and ended up moving, I believe, to a station in Vancouver, and it opened up a spot in the sports department. So one day I got this phone call from CJOH and they said, "Would you be interested in coming here?" And I said, "I'm ready to come back to Ontario. I would love it." And the best part was, I would have been about 31 at the time. I'd never been to Ottawa. And so I packed up my Honda Prelude in the fall of 1997, drove from Edmonton to Ottawa, and remember pulling into the city thinking to myself, I've never been to this place. So let the adventures begin. And I got to cover that year an incredible Ottawa Senators hockey team. They had Damian Rhodes in goal. They had Daniel Alfredson. They had Alexei Yashin in his prime. And they ended up squeezing into the 8th position in the East at the end of the year. And I was on a plane with the rest of the Ottawa media heading for New Jersey in what was supposed to be a sweep by the Devils. And the Senators upset the number 1 seed New Jersey Devils. It was an amazing time to be part of it.
Yeah, that would have been only the second time the Sens ever made the Stanley Cup playoffs. The start of what ended up, as we've been saying recently, now that the Sens are back, like we took it for granted. But back then they had just been getting underway. So what were those early memories of you? Were you able to be at the rink for any of those games too?
Oh, I was there every step of the way. The energy, first of all, in Ottawa was incredible. They ended up winning the series back in New Jersey. I remember heading to New Jersey for game 1. And again, the expectation was the Devils were so good. In fact, many of the members of the Devils claimed they didn't even know the names of some of the Senator players, which was, highly insulting.
Wow.
And in game 1, Bruce Gardner scores in overtime to win game 1. And I'm thinking to myself, you got to be kidding me. This is a number 8 seed doing this. And I remember when the series ended, if I recall correctly, it ended in New Jersey. And there were 2 planes to get everybody back to Ottawa, this really fancy jet to get the players and coaches, and then this twin propeller plane that was going to get, like Gord and the rest of us from the media, Don Brennan and Wayne Scanlon, back to Ottawa in this twin prop, which broke down on the tarmac in New Jersey. So we had to sit and wait for the jet to fly to Ottawa, drop off the players, turn around and come back to get us. And I will never forget that. And I forget if it was, Gord or Dean Brown got on the microphone on the plane when the drinks were served at 4:00 in the morning. And it was so much fun.
How about the fact it's still Dean and Gord doing the radio, eh? They've
to this
been there day one.
It's incredible. I haven't worked in Ottawa in almost 30 years. I've been at Sportsnet 27 years. So that tells you how long I've been away from the Ottawa market, and they're still there. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those guys, Wayne Scanlon, friend of the show, he's still there writing with Sportsnet for you guys as well.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the same group. And that's kind of what's made it so special here as the teams all turned over. As fans, we're still kind of reading and learning about the team from a lot of the same individuals. And Dean Brown with his iconic calls, the scramble, all that. It's just, it resonates so well. So what was it about the Ottawa Senators, though, that resonated with you, that you were there for 1 year? It was a special year, but now you brought the hat to the I was going to call it the Sky Dome, the Rogers Center the other day. Like, you're still following along the Ottawa Senators. It really made that big of an impact on you.
They made a huge impact. And part of it is when you work in local TV, as I did, you get to know the people who run the organization. You get to know the guys who put on the skates, and you gain, more notably, a respect for the community, right? I had worked in media on a national level in Toronto, but here I was as a local broadcaster where I was immersed in the community itself. And when you work that deeply in a community, you grow to love it. And that's what happened. So my love of the Ottawa Senators works in tandem with my love of Ottawa as a city and as a region. Okay, so that's where that comes from. This organization will never ever lose my support, and I hope to be alive to see them hoisting Lord Stanley at some point.
Well, could happen this year, Jamie.
Might happen this year,
chance. Guys. So these days, obviously, your schedule's packed with baseball games. It blows my mind every time seeing that baseball is 162 games a year. Are you able to watch a lot of Sens games? Are you tuning in here or there, or what's your ability to stay connected to the team?
Well, a few things. The beauty of baseball is that most of your winter is free. So if I can't actually watch a Senators game during the winter, I will record it and shuffle through it in the morning when I'm getting ready to take my kids to school. I get less time to see them at this point in the year because my focus is on the baseball team. But for example, there is a game being played this evening that will be on a monitor somewhere near me when we're dealing with the Blue Jays and the Orioles. So they're never too far from a television screen when they're playing for me. And I'm really excited about where this is going to go. I don't think any team in the upper echelon of the standings should get comfortable knowing that they're going to face the wild card Senators, because I've seen it once before, right? In the spring of 1998, I saw them take down a number 1 seed, and I'm pretty sure they can do it again.
So 2 follow-up questions. One of them, I'm looking at the Jays schedule, and the playoff schedule's not out yet, but there's a pretty good chance that the Sens' first home game is going to fall on that free Jays Thursday, April 24th.
Yes. I
Could
know.
we see you at the CTC?
Well, here's the problem with that. My eldest son is a first year at the University of Western Ontario, and I believe he has an exam that evening.
Okay.
And he's the one I would want to come to Ottawa with. My youngest son, God love him, doesn't like sports at all.
Okay.
So we're going to have to check the DNA there to make sure he's actually my son. I'm sure he is, because he looks like my father. But my eldest has an exam. So even if it were to fall on that day, if I was coming, I'd probably be coming solo or with someone who, is, I don't know, pick up somebody hitchhiking along the 401 who's got a Senators hat on. I don't know.
Watch out. People are going to line up all down the 401.
Yeah.
Probably Belleville, I think, would be a good spot to pick one up.
There you go.
I'm gonna keep an eye, though. I mean, I would love to get there. I'd rather, honestly, and if they end up playing Toronto for some reason, I'd rather go to Ottawa to see it than, I don't know.
The library, we call it. We'll say it. You don't have to.
Yeah, their arena's 20 minutes from my house, so we'll see, guys.
Is your oldest son a Blue Team fan? Did he just from growing up there, or is he smarter than that?
You know who he likes? He likes the San Jose Sharks because,
All right.
because on his mother's side, Joe Thornton is a distant relative, and once he learned that
cool.
when he was about 6 years old, he just attached himself to the Sharks.
Yeah.
Well, that's good, because he could have gone to the Blue Team at one point. He could have changed over when Joe went there. So I'm glad he stuck to the teal.
He kept his allegiance to the teal. Yes.
Good.
There's so many connections too with Ottawa and San Jose, like 2 major trades where Ottawa sent Danny Heatley to San Jose, and then they sent Eric Carlson to San Jose. Marty Havlat ended up playing in San Jose as well. The biggest of all. Come on.
Yeah.
Jamie, you're watching the games, you're following along, so give us your X Factor player for the Senators in the playoffs.
Well, if he's healthy, Mr. Tkachuk, who was, my goodness, he was an immovable force in the Four Nations.
Crazy.
And typical of hockey, we're not entirely sure what seems to be bothering him. I chuckle at the upper and lower body. In baseball, all the injuries are very specific, right? It's a torn ACL. But in hockey, you need to mask what's hurting you so that somebody doesn't come after you when the game begins. If he's healthy, there's your X factor right there, if such a thing exists, because he's the heartbeat of this team as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, he's going to start skating soon, according to Travis Green. And Steve Staios mentioned if it was playoffs, he would probably find a way to play. So I'm not too worried about him
You
missing
could
any
pull
time
him out
in the
on a
playoffs.
stretcher and he would just kind of sit up like the Undertaker out of the casket and he'd be ready to go for playoffs. Come on.
Yeah. Brady's not missing this. And I think the hockey world, even people that aren't fans of Sens, the Ottawa Senators, are like, we need to see Brady Tkachuk in the playoffs. So it's going to happen.
We do, but look at the way, Stützle's he's increased his game to a different level this year. Bathurst has just become this force on the power play specifically. Sanderson's probably going to win a Norris Trophy in the next 5 or 6 years.
That's what Keith Tkachuk told us last summer.
Right.
And some people were chirping, but he's unreal.
Shabbat has matured into this wonderful defenseman. And Amadio, I love what Amadio brings to this team. I know it's not first line minutes, but goodness gracious, every time I turn around, he's got some garbage assist or a goal or something like that. So they're a hoot to watch these days. Dare I mention, by the way, how the perspective on this team changed the moment Dylan Cousins threw the jersey over his shoulders, right? It's quite something to take a highly considered, still sort of almost in his prospect years, of his size and of his touch, and add him to this team, a team that was already well oiled. And I just think that was such a savvy transaction on their behalf.
Everyone already watches the Blue Jays, and now when they get to see you, they're gonna be like, that's one of us up there, Ottawa Senators fans.
Hey, you might see me in the arena if things go well again. I mean, I should probably offer up a pair of tickets to a Blue Jays game, and maybe even if I could arrange it, some batting practice passes for someone, exchanging me a pair of Senators tickets, because
we'll see you right behind the bench. You'll be front row with that deal.
We'll see. Let's see if the days line up. Let's see if the off days line up.
Awesome. Well, Jamie, we'll be in touch on that, and hopefully it's a nice long run for the Ottawa Senators and that you're covering the Blue Jays deep into the fall, and we'll be watching you all summer long on Jays Central. Really appreciate you for doing this.
All right, Ross, Brandon, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, guys.
Stick taps to Jamie Campbell for joining us. Really fun conversation. We will see you tonight in the postcast. Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Final thoughts is, Ross, I can't wait. You've already got a 5 o'clock shadow going, so you're ahead of me here, but my face is getting cold, so I can't wait for this beard to start growing. And I want to look like Gandalf or Dumbledore by the end of this playoff run, Ross. I want to see how long I can get this beard growing. So let's hope the Senators stick in it for a while.
Thank you to everybody for liking, watching, listening, subscribing, and engaging with the show. Be a friend, tell a friend. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.